Connor was still grumbling as he sped out of the high school parking lot. His Silverado made enough noise to wake the dead. At least, that's what his grandfather used to tell him. But his thoughts came back to the situation at hand. Peggy Tomspons had just dumped him outside of the high school gym for a jerk named Richie Sanders. A string of obscenities flew out of his mouth. Why? Because Richie's family had money. Not just money, they were filthy rich. No one family should have so much money when others had to work so hard for it. Look at me. My daddy bought me a brand new fancy car. I didn't have to earn the money myself. He mimicked Peggy's crushing statement. He is rich. That means he's just better than you. If that wasn't bad enough, she left him standing there for everyone to laugh at. Laughing at him and his dad's stupid blue suit. He walked out with a heavy, embarrassed heart. I don't need you, he said aloud, to no one. You're stupid, he added, still mumbling under his breath. As he drove, his foot pressed heavily on the gas pedal. He took Willie's corner just a bit too fast, his tires losing grip on the wet, oily road. He turned his wheel and straightened out just in time to miss a small, dark figure. A person walking dangerously close to the edge of the highway. His foot was on the brake, the sound echoing down the dimly lit road. He took several shaky breaths, ready to get out of his cab and give the guy a piece of his mind. But that guy was a sad, frightened young girl, close to his own age. She just stood there. The rain had soaked her beautiful auburn hair. It clung to her pale, soft cheeks. She was crying and looked confused, glancing left and right as if looking for someone. He felt bad for being angry, and he rushed over to see if he could help. He grabbed his old track and field jacket. For a second he frowned. The jacket was old and worn, yet when he offered it to her, she only smiled with gratitude. There was something about those hazel eyes, haunting. Yes, that's the word he was looking for. Can you help me? I'm lost. My boyfriend left me here. Her face was so pale, tears rolled down her cheeks in huge droplets. His heart sank. Surely he was overreacting. He got dumped. It was nothing compared to being abandoned on a O'Reilly's. What kind of jerk does that? He asked himself. No one really drove the highway anymore. Not after the new fandangled superhighway was finished last year. Connor thought the road was abandoned. No one lived here. But then, maybe he was wrong. Can you drive me home? My parents must be very worried, she told him. The thought seemed to sadden her even more. He helped her into the cab. He wondered if he should take her to the hospital. When he offered, she shook her head. I want to go home. She gave him the address, 1175 O'Reilly. Her voice was soft and her eyes distant. He drove looking straight ahead, glancing several times to his right. He cleared his throat nervously. Now that they were in the cab, he could tell she was even more beautiful than he realized. Connor wasn't used to talking to beautiful girls. He searched his empty head for something to say. The silence was uncomfortable, at least to him. She seemed content to stare out the darkened window. I'm Connor. He offered his name first. She turned to face him. Annie, my friends used to call me Annie, was all she said. As sad as he felt for Annie, he was feeling a little better himself. Maybe being dumped wasn't so bad after all. They sat in silence. Connor felt himself relaxing. Even the storm seemed to calm a little. They dumped. Pair sat contently, the heat blasting, the radio whispering low in the background. It was strange. She continued to look for houses, but found only a handful, which were boarded up, most condemned. Not many people still come this way. I am glad I did. Connor smiled, and Annie smiled back, nodding. You are the only one that's ever stopped. That caught his attention. Had others driven past Annie tonight? Left her alone on a deserted, dangerous corner of an abandoned road. How long had she been here, waiting? They drove to the very end of O'Reilly's, back in 2007, A horrible car accident had occurred. The car had swerved and hit the side rail. The car plummeted 200 feet straight down. No one in the car had survived. He found the address, slowing down. This couldn't be right, he thought to himself. Annie, are you sure? He turned his head to ask. To his shock, the cab was empty. He hadn't even heard her open the door. An unwanted explosion of thunder almost above his truck almost made him jump out of his skin. The storm had returned. A flash of lightning illuminated the sky, and he saw her running in front of his truck. He jumped out of the cab. To his dismay, he was standing in front of the old cemetery. No one came here. No one put their loved ones here anymore. After the accident, people thought the place was cursed or haunted. He watched as she fled between crumbling tombstones. No matter how fast he ran, he couldn't catch her. And he was fast. He had medals and awards to prove it. He was even faster than Richie Sanders. He smirked. He turned corner after corner but couldn't catch her. He called her name, but thunder seemed to swallow his words. Annie, stop, please. As if by magic, everything stopped, became still. There was no rain, no thunder. It wasn't a normal silence. It felt unnatural. Not even a cricket. Now, admittedly, Connor wasn't a brave young man. Perhaps that was why he could run so fast. He looked around for several long minutes, finally realizing she wasn't there anymore. He walked the entire perimeter of Potts Cemetery. She wasn't there. Poof, gone. The strangest thing was the back gate was chained and fastened with a huge rusted lock that would probably still be around after everything else crumbled into dust. He took a tug just to make sure. The gate did not budge. Reluctantly, Connor started back to the entrance. The storm was still. For now, he could see the main gate, with just enough room to squeeze through like before. His inner voice told him she most likely lived close. Maybe him being a stranger, she was just being careful. Another flash of lightning flashed above the cemetery. This time he ran, faster than he'd ever ran before. Something told him not to look back. He ran so hard he had no choice but to stop. His lungs hurt, and he was gasping to breathe. He leaned heavily against the side of a tombstone. He stood, the hairs on the back of his neck standing straight up. There was this sensation of not being alone. Then a soft voice whispered, "Thank you for letting me use your jacket." It could have been his imagination, or just the wind blowing through the empty cemetery. He heard a soft laugh. It was coming from behind him. He took his hand off the tombstone and forced himself to turn around. No one was there. But he did notice something, his track jacket hanging loosely over the very stone he'd leaned on to catch his breath. He wanted to run. His brain was screaming, "Don't look, don't you dare look." Even as the words drifted through his mind, he couldn't help but step closer to the tombstone. Here lies our dearest Annie Sinclair. Gone too soon. That's all, folks. He ran to the gates, squeezing through the small opening, the chains clanking loudly. The wind howled through the empty lot, and that soft, sweet laugh echoing through the forgotten headstones. He didn't stop until his door was locked. He turned the ignition and the engine roared to life. Its headlights shining into Potts Cemetery, he sped off, watching in his rearview mirror at the figure of an auburn-haired girl. His track jacket around her shoulders. Maybe his grandfather had been right. Maybe his truck was loud enough to wake the dead. As for his jacket, "Keep it," he said softly. His foot hit the gas pedal a little harder. "Yeah, just keep it, Annie." "Story 2. She said yes. Keenan turned off the engine and pulled down the driver's side visor, giving himself a once-over in the mirror. Exiting the car, he used his reflection to straighten the collar on his shirt before patting his pocket, double-checking for the ring box, and started up the walkway. The 2-story house loomed over him like a monolithic dollhouse, casting doubts into his heart. He'd never considered the possibility that she would say no, or that her family may have some issue. Elizabeth had been there for him through everything in the last 2 years, and he couldn't imagine a life without her. There was no doorbell, only a sleek pink plastic-looking ring underneath a peep window. The knocker's bright color contrasted the snow white of the door, looking less functional and more like a drawer knob on a child's play kitchen set. Despite the appearance, the door represented a turning point and growth in their relationship. Beyond its frame stood an answer, and positive or negative, life would never be the same. "Fortune favors the bold," he said, inching his hand upward and grasping the cool, lifeless plastic. Seconds later, Elizabeth opened the door, allowing a rush of air conditioning to land on Keenan's face, carrying with it the smells of a veritable smorgasbord from deeper within. Just inside, he could see a baseball bat and glove leaning against the wall at the base of a massive coat rack that held old-looking but otherwise prim garments. "Give me just a second to make sure everyone is in place, okay, babe?" she said, giving him a quick kiss and retreating back into the smells and cool air and leaving him with the growing anxiety. Cloud passed in front of the sun, casting shade on the neighborhood. Seconds later, the door reopened. This time, a woman looking strikingly like Elizabeth, but 10 years older, stood into the threshold. "You must be Keenan. We've heard so much about you. I'm Elizabeth's mom, Mary. Come on, let's get you out of the heat," she said. If Keenan hadn't already known Elizabeth didn't have a sister, the woman before him certainly would have passed for one. She sported a teal sweater draped over the shoulders of her white blouse, and her hair was pulled back into a ponytail like Barbie, getting ready to hop into her pink convertible for a weekend trip with Skipper. Inside, the air felt even colder than Keenan was expecting, pulling the warmth from his body and sending a shiver down his arms. The pale blue wallpaper gave the illusion that he'd just stepped into the taiga, contrasting with the dark wood, molding, and framework. To his left, a young boy in a green and white striped shirt played with toy cars on a circular rug. "You'll have to excuse the mess," she said. She locked her arm around his. "Georgie loves spending time out in the front room when he gets the chance. Let me show you to the dining room." Her pull was gentle and delicate, if not a bit robotic, like a soft breeze nudging him forward. As they walked, a door to the right caught his attention. It was the same color as the dark wood molding, but looked far older and decrepit than anything else in the house. A padlock rested unlatched on the frame. The smell from behind the door was unidentifiable, yet familiar, and carried a trace of warning. "Never you mind the cellar now," Marie said. The pull on his arm grew stronger to match the sudden and terse change in her voice. He felt her breath touch his neck on the final word, carrying more command than mere suggestion. A man who couldn't have been more than 5 years older than Keenan sat at the dinner table, newspaper in hand. His glasses and haircut gave the spitting image of Buddy Holly in his early 40s. With his foot resting on his opposite knee and navy sweater over-collared button-up, his pose looked more like a department store mannequin than a father greeting his daughter's lover for the first time. "Hey, there's the big guy. Put her there, Chris Mortensen. But you hardly need an introduction after all the stories I've heard," he said, extending his hand to Keenan. Chris's grip was light but decisive and cool to the touch. Goose pimples shot down Keenan's arms with another shake. "Their electricity bill must be through the roof. This entire house is an icebox. Georgie, put your cars away and come here. Dinner's almost ready," Marie called. The boy trudged in, one car still in hand. Georgie stood in the entryway to the kitchen and locked eyes with Keenan, giving all the suspicion of a child at the doctor when told he wouldn't feel a thing. "You're not supposed to be here. This isn't your place," he said. His morose tone took Keenan by surprise, reminding him of Marie's comments in the hallway. "Now be nice, Georgie." Keenan is our guest, Chris said. Why, one day he may even join the family himself. Keenan felt his potential father-in-law's eyes drift to the square bulge in his pocket and understood the statement for the blessing it was. Georgie, not satisfied, slumped his shoulders like a marionette given slack. Why would he want to do that? So he can go to his room and not leave until he's been a good boy too? Marie gave a chuckle at her son's indignation. The boy threw himself into his chair, maintaining a firm grip on the car. Before we get settled, would you point me in the direction of the restroom, Mrs. Mortensen? Keenan asked. The butterflies had returned, dancing pirouettes in his throat. Back down the hall we came down. Take the second door on your right, she said. Be sure not to get lost and end up going down to the cellar now. She paused. Actually, Georgie, would you be a darling and lead him so that he doesn't lose his way? No, that'll be quite fine. Second door on the right, Kenan said. The thought of Georgie even complying without argument seemed unlikely, and something else was beginning to nag at him. Elizabeth was taking a long time getting ready. Did she know what he was planning? Was she trying to make sure everything was perfect, or was she preparing for a way to let him down easy? The butterflies morphed into hornets, buzzing up from his throat into his head until he could barely think. Georgie stood without word and took him by the hand, still holding his car in the other, like an old worrystone. The boy's movements seemed forced, as if not entirely his own, though his face grimaced, showing all his displeasure at having to parade this stranger around his home. In the hall, Georgie paused outside the cellar door. It seemed to be drawing them, pulling their attention deeper within its recesses. Mom and Dad don't want you to see the cellar. They say it's a mess down there, but I know the truth. There's a monster down there. A monster? Keenan said, a slight grin pursing his lips. He knelt down to George's level. Yeah, a monster. And once you're down there, you can only come out sometimes when the monster decides it wants to play with you. Well, I'm here now. You don't need to be afraid. I'm not afraid of the monster, Keenan said, hoping some of the comfort of the boy. You should be. In the bathroom, Keenan splashed warm water on his face. The house was growing colder by the second, like a plastic toy left in the yard cooling with the setting sun. The restroom felt warm. It was the warmest he had been since the front porch. The pastel pink walls and yellow towels gave a cozy, safe feeling. T-H-U-N-K. The sound came from deeper in the house. Keenan dried his face and stepped outside. Georgie, you okay? But the boy wasn't there. The house was silent now. No noise from the dining room either. Keenan looked down the hall and saw the cellar door was cracked open. His heart skipped a beat. Georgie must have tried to be brave and fell down the stairs. Rushing forward, his hands gripped the old wood door and pulled forward. Flies swarmed in his face. The smell of rot, of death, wafted up from the depths and hooked its fingers into his nose. He put his foot on the first step, testing its strength and eliciting a loud groan. The others gave similar protest as he descended further into the darkness. The air grew heavy and hot, and the odors consumed him. George's story of the monster suddenly seemed not just plausible but likely. At the bottom of the stairs, Keenan's shoes clicked against the cement of the floor. The light of the hallway seemed to be several stories above him as it trickled down the stairs, landing in a narrow rivulet on a dangling cord attached to a light bulb. With all the trepidation he faced at the door knocker, he lifted his arm, now weighing 1,000 pounds, toward the pull cord. The light clicked on, and the nightmare before him twisted his mind, completely oblivious to a shadow of movement into the depths of darkness as one of the objects slid down. An old table covered in dust and cobwebs, sat surrounded by 5 chairs. The 2 furthest from him were empty, but his eyes danced back and forth between the occupied seats, one of which dropped down and landed. Mummified corpses sat around the table like a nuclear family. The 2 larger ones had their mouths agape, while the smaller, newest arrival to the dinner party leaned forward, resting its brow on the dirty surface, like a broken old doll forgotten on Christmas morning. Frozen in its hand was an old faded toy car. Flies and bugs flitted between the open mouths and eye sockets of the other 2. They were so aged and shrunk and wrinkled their faces were indistinguishable. All 3 had rotted to baldness from years of decomposition. Their clothes all waved at the slight breeze of Keenan's breath, patched and worn and muffian. As the scream welled up in Keenan's throat, he heard the faintest scrape against the floor behind him. "Now you're mine," Elizabeth said, "and we can be together forever." She brought the baseball bat down against the base of his skull, and he became one with the house.